I'm Ken Hardcastle, winemaker at Hermit Winery, here to present our fall 2023 club release. Really excited about this release. We do this twice a year, every year. We release with 6 different wines. And as we do this release, we will have these 6 wines open for you at our tasting room for you to sample. But I want to walk through these, taste through these wines with you, give you an idea about each one of them. First one I'm going to share with you is a brand new vintage of a wine that we've been making for many years called Lake House Red. And this is the 2020 vintage. 2020 was a fantastic year for dark berries in New England, and it comes through in the wine. This is a bright, vibrant, complex, deep, dry red wine comprised of blueberries, blackberries, elderberries, and black raspberries. So very excited. We've just finished off with our 2019 vintage, and the 2020 vintage is going out to all of you as well. All right, let's move on to the next wine we're sharing with you this year, this release. This is the 2019 Elderberry wine. Elderberries are a fantastic, very nutritious dark berry that grow all over New England. We have sourced from different places each vintage for this wine. These particular berries came from an organic grower in Arkansas. There's a small percentage of wild blueberries blended with the elderberries to sort of balance the deep, earthy notes that elderberry brings to the glass. Aging beautifully. Very soft, very gentle. The acid has fallen back. It's a fantastic vintage. I'm so happy that we get a chance to share a bottle of this with you folks in our club. It's got a spicy character, a bit like a Syrah grape, but totally unique to itself. All right, let's move on to our next wine. This is a series of 3 big, dark, complex, dry red wines made out of local berries, and this is our Hermitage. I'm very excited about this. This is the 2019 vintage of Hermitage. We're just finishing up the 18, and it's time to release the 19. This was fermented back in 2019 with berries harvested that year, aged in French oak barrels for 2 years prior to blending and bottling. This is comprised of blueberries, blackberries, elderberries, and some black currants. It's a very complex dry red. It's our biggest, boldest dry red. This has some elderberry in it, and following the elderberry, I can pick out some of those spicy notes, but there's so much coming forward from the blackberries and the blueberries in this vintage that it's really a harmonious flavor. This really speaks to our namesake, Hermit Woods Winery, named for a hermit that lived here in the mid-1800s, and so we're calling this Hermitage. There's a famous wine-producing region in France called Hermitage, also named for a hermit. That was back in the 13 or 1400s, and that's the birthplace of the Syrah grape. So a little sort of historical context to this wine. Wonderful. All right, we're not gonna have 6 big reds. We're gonna move on now into a rosé, and then into a very unique dark berry wine, and finally with our sparkling strawberry wine. So we're just about to release the 2022 vintage of our Winnipesaukee Rosé. Quite different, as you might see, from the just previous 21 Winnipesaukee Rosé, much darker. The reason for that, in the past, this has been comprised of a sweet cider, pressed locally, combined with an heirloom cider apple called Kingston Black, and some cranberries from the Cape Cod region. Exact same blend here, except that it was not all sweet cider. 2/3 of the cider was the dark heirloom cider that we normally use in our Firewood and Kittens hard cider. So this is a much more complex and robust rosé wine. As with all rosé-like wines that we produce here, very food-friendly, very balanced, nice and clean. This has some pretty pronounced grippy tannins, which really offset and balance the bright, vibrant flavors from the cranberries and the apples. Wonderful vintage. All right, let's move on. We have quite a few wines to go through here today. This is a wine that we've been producing for a few years now. This is the third vintage of what we call Northernberry Red. It is a complex red wine made out of a particular berry called a honeyberry or haskap berry that's grown locally here, blended with some wild blueberries and some local wildflower honey during the fermentation process. Very excited for this vintage. This is brand new. This is the 2022 vintage. We just finished up with the 21. Crafted the same way as the previous vintage, but just like grape-based wines, each vintage is different because of Mother Nature, the conditions during harvest, and the growing season. Some of you may be familiar with this wine. It's very lively, it's very distinctive, it's got a very unique aromatic character to it. Almost like a boysenberry, blackberry pie. It has this wonderful sweet and sour character to it. Perfect. Lightly chilled, really brings the fruit out nicely. It's a balanced finish. There's a touch of sugar added to it prior to bottling to balance some of the bright acidity that's in these berries. Wonderful. All right. Last but certainly not least is the first time we have ever worked in collaboration with Flag Hill Winery here in New Hampshire. They have a special tank which can withstand very high pressure. So we prepared our strawberry rhubarb wine and took a portion of that wine over to Flag Hill. They put it into their special Charmat tank, which can pressurize up to 5 bars, very high pressures, infusing it with 1 million tiny little carbon dioxide bubbles. Deb Lucky put together a beautiful new label for the packaging. And I hope I don't hit the ceiling here because this is a champagne that's got lots of bubbles to it. Perfect for any festive occasion, of course. You can see the CO2 gas and bubbles coming up out of this. It's a very lively wine. It's our strawberry rhubarb. So this is the combination of locally grown strawberries that come in fresh from the field. We've harvested the rhubarb locally, and those are combined and fermented. The wild yeast on the strawberries starts the ferment, which gives the aromatic, and the aromatic really jumps with these bubbles. The rhubarb comes through nicely on this vintage. I think those bubbles bring it up to the palate even faster. So this is our sparkling strawberry rhubarb at full champagne levels in this new package. So this gives us a profile and a spectrum of the sorts of wines that we craft here at Hermit Woods. We try each vintage to each release of our club to give you a variety of different types. We have 3 dry complex reds, each with their own characteristics. We have our beautiful Winnipesaukee Rosé, our Northernberry Red, and our full champagne sparkling strawberry rhubarb. I look forward to seeing all of you and to sharing these with you here at the Hermit Woods Winery. Thank you.